Well, hello everyone. It's a bit weird doing this. I'm sitting in my little office chatting to you guys. Normally we'd be at church and it'd be much easier. I feel a bit like a newsreader doing this, so please excuse me if it sounds a bit like that. As you know, it's not my normal style, but we'll see if we can have a bit of fun with this as well. It looks like I'm reading this all the time, which I'm not. Anyway, this isn't quite the way I'd imagined I'll be speaking to you today. Is actually really weird, actually quite extraordinary, but at the same time this is just a blip, and we'll be seen as part of our adventure together as Hope Church, and we'll remember it just part of our joint history, so that should be alright. Anyway, for those of you who are not really sure why we're doing what we are, we've taken the decision to suspend formal church meetings together. Let me just say this, as your pastor I feel actually convicted, and I believe it's the right thing we're doing. It's my responsibility to do my bit to protect those of you in the congregation and those that you come into contact with from this horrible virus that's spreading across the country. It's horrible. Anyway, many of us will be fine if we catch it, I know, but that's not about us, is it? It's about those that are in the vulnerable groups among us, and that we can come into contact with in our communities. So be responsible. Social distancing is important. What a strange phrase that is, social distancing. You may be okay, but we must remember the vulnerable. That's those who are more susceptible to picking this virus up, and it can be really, really difficult if they catch something. Anyway, so for us at Hope Church, we can still do church. It's just going to be a little bit weird as it is at the moment. Might look a little bit different, but let's all do our bit and see how we go. Anyway, I'm supposed to be preaching today, so this is going to be my attempt at a preach on the video link, which is so strange because there's no one to bounce off. It's just very wooden, but here we go. So I'm looking at Joshua 4. That's my bit that I've got to do, and hopefully this will come across. I'm not proposing to do this exactly as I'll do it as I normally preach, because we're usually much more interactive, but I'll do my very best. So just bear with me, and I'm sure as the weeks go by we'll be getting better at this, and maybe we get a bigger camera or something like that, and you'll see me walking around and all those sorts of things. Anyway, let's look at Joshua 4. It says this, Joshua 4, when the whole nation had finished crossing the Jordan, the Lord said to Joshua, choose 12 men from among the people, one from each tribe, and tell them to take up 12 stones from the middle of the Jordan, from right where the priests are standing now, and carry them over with you and put them down at the place where you stay tonight. So that's what they had to do, and dig these up. So Joshua called together the 12 men he had appointed from the Israelites, one from each tribe, and he said to them, go over before the ark of the Lord your God into the middle of the Jordan. Each of you is to take up a stone on his shoulder, according to the number of the tribes of the Israelites, to serve as a sign among you. In the future, when your children ask you, what do these stones mean? Tell them that the flow of the Jordan was cut off before the ark of the covenant of the Lord. When it crossed the Jordan, the waters of the Jordan were cut off. These stones are to be a memorial to the people of Israel forever. So this is going to be an aide memoire for them. So the Israelites did as Joshua had commanded them, which is good. They took 12 stones from the middle of the Jordan, according to the number of the tribes of the Israelites, as the Lord had told Joshua. And they carried them over with them to their camp, and they put them down there. Joshua then set up the 12 stones that had been in the middle of the river at the spot where the priests who carried the Ark of the Covenant had stood, and they are there to this day. The Bible says a lot of this, and there to this day. So what it's saying is they weren't going to be moved. Now the priests who carried the ark remained standing in the middle of the Jordan until everything the Lord had commanded Joshua was done by the people, just as Moses had directed Joshua. So they're just keeping to script here. And the people hurried over. As soon as all of them had crossed, the ark of the Lord and the priests came to the other side while the people watched. The men of Reuben, Gad and the half-tribe of Manasseh crossed over ready for battle in front of the Israelites as Moses had directed them. There were about 40,000 armed for battle. They crossed over before the Lord to the plains of Jericho, ready for war. So they're getting ready. That day the Lord exalted Joshua in the sight of all Israel, and they stood in awe of him all the days of his life, just as they had stood in awe of Moses. Then the Lord said to Joshua, Command the priests carrying the Ark of the Covenant law to come up out of the Jordan. So Joshua commanded the priests, come on up out of the Jordan. And they came up out of the river, carrying the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord. No sooner had they set their feet on the ground than the waters of the Jordan returned to their place and ran in flood as before. This is one of those sort of events that I'd really love to have been at personally. It would have been absolutely awesome. Now on the 10th day of the first month, the people went up from the Jordan and camped at Gilgal on the eastern border of Jericho. And Joshua set up at Gilgal the 12 stones they had taken out of the Jordan. So he built an altar, like a cairn actually. That's what he did. And he said to the Israelites, in the future when your descendants ask their parents, what do these stones mean? Tell them, Israel crossed the Jordan on dry ground. For the Lord your God dried up the Jordan before you until you had crossed over. The Lord your God did to the Jordan what he had done to the Red Sea when he dried it up before us until we had crossed over. He did this so that all the peoples of the earth might know that the hand of the Lord is powerful, and so that you might always fear the Lord your God. So it's a pretty big demonstration. And so that's what we're doing. So last time when we were in Joshua, Nigel was brilliant. He told us about journeys, and he told the story of how the Israelites had journeyed through the wilderness and now, under the command of Joshua, crossed the river Jordan, which was in flood. This was a miracle. God supernaturally separated the water so the Israelites could cross on dry land, which was pretty pucker. Now this chapter isn't primarily about that, amazing though it be. We've done that, we did that last time. But Phil Moore in his commentary on this chapter titles it Stones. Fantastic title, Stone the Crows. Anyway, stones matter a lot throughout the book of Joshua, and he commands the people on several occasions to create piles of stones as monuments to memorialise key moments in the conquest of Canaan. So you've got this picture really of piles of stones everywhere, really, people walking around stubbing their foot on it. But these are not just little piles, these are great big stones that they pulled out, so you would notice them. Now chapter 4 deals with the crossing of the river Jordan, and then the command to once again bring 12 stones out and put them down. Now they wouldn't have been pebbles, these would have been great big boulders, and they're going to create a monument on the other side, which they did. Why? Good question. In the scripture here, at the end it says, he said to the Israelites, in the future, when your descendants ask their parents, what do these stones mean? Which I guess they could have done. Tell them, Israel crossed the Jordan on dry ground. For the Lord your God dried up the Jordan before you until you were crossed over. The Lord your God did to the Jordan what he had done to the Red Sea. This is history repeating itself, really. When he dried it up before us until we had crossed over. He did this so that all the peoples of the earth might know that the hand of the Lord is powerful, and so you might always fear the Lord your God. This seems pretty amazing to me. I know that if I'd been part of this, my kids would have known about this. I would never have stopped talking about it. It's such an amazing miracle that this river was just pushed back like that. The problem here, though, was that only Caleb and Joshua had survived the initial experience of crossing the Red Sea. Everyone else had died in the intervening years. But we know from reading through the Old Testament how quickly the people of God forget all that God had done to them time and time and time again. Ad nauseum, really. They just get their lives straight, go on with God, and they forget, and they go down all sorts of blind alleys. And we can be a bit like that too, I think, sometimes. So, memorials are important in the Bible. They're something we should remember. Anyway, now, I've got some things that I need to show you. I mean, if we were together, this would be much more fun. It'd be a little bit of a quiz. But anyway, I've got some pictures I want to show you, and I want you to have a quick look at them and see what you think. So the first one is this one. So this is the first picture that I want to show you. Probably you should know this one. But do you know what it commemorates? Have a little think about that one. See if you can remember. Not many of you are old enough, but see what you think it commemorates. Then this is the second picture I want to show you. This would be familiar to all of you. I'm sure you'd have seen this at some stage. But again, do you know what it's called and what its official title is? Okay, this one is a little bit more obscure. Some of you will know, some of you won't, but give this one a little go. It's a really famous photograph, actually, a really memorial, momentous occasion. So have a go on that one. And then on the flip side, you can just see that through the paper. Is this one. This is very famous. See this every year as well if you're sports fanatics. If you're not, you might not know, but just have a little think about that one. And then that's number 4. And number 5, very famous bit of silverware, this one. I've got one of these at home. See what you think of that. And we'll have a little answer session in a minute. It's a shame we're not together because we could have had a real competition about this. We could have had a bit of a ruck as well. Which would be fun. Then this one, Gareth will get this one, so if he's in the house, ask him. He'll know exactly what that one is all about. And then I've done those pictures. Now I've got something else now to show you. I've got a couple of medals, believe it or not. So let me just find my medals. They're just here somewhere. Okay, this is the first one. I like this one. This looks like a war medal. It's not actually, but it looks like it. Look, that's pretty cool, isn't it? I like that one. It's really smart. It's quite old. See if you know what that is. And then this one's just a bit of a giggle, to be honest, because it says what it is, and Tom will know all about this one, so you can talk to Tom about this. It's all back to front. There you go. But I'll read that out to you in a minute, tell you exactly what that is. So, first things first. The first picture we had was of Nelson's column. So there he is, old Nelson standing on top there, bless him. Nelson's column. And this actually was to celebrate his final battle with the French. So he was victorious, they won the day. Battle of Trafalgar, but unfortunately for him, it wasn't good for him because he died. He got killed on that one. So, a bit of tough luck, Nelson, but that's what that one is. Now, then the next one I've got here was this one, and you shout it all out so I can hear you. No, I can't hear you. It is the cenotaph, which actually is the United Kingdom's official national war memorial. I didn't know that until I started to do this sort of research. Then the next one is this one, which we talked about. This one is the Iwo Jima statue. It's for the US Marines on there. It's a really famous picture. And this is at the Arlington National Cemetery in America. Then, of course, we've got this one. This is the Wimbledon singles titles, the men's and the ladies. I never understand why they're not the same. They should be the same, really, but a bit of sexism going on there. But there you go. That's that. And then, of course, we've got these amazing medals. This one, unless you know, you won't know, will you? Obviously. This is a medal that was awarded to Leslie when she qualified as a nurse. That's from Charing Cross Hospital. It's quite impressive, isn't it? I like that one. And then this one is just a bit of fun, to be honest. But as it says on there, it is the Super League champion Daily Telegraph fantasy football season 2005-2006. That was quite funny at the time because Leslie was in this football league that season, and I think she was the only girl in it, and the boys got really annoyed because she won it and they didn't. They thought they were better than her. Ask Tom, he knows all about this one. He didn't win it either. So that's quite entertaining. Now, so what you might say? So these are all some sort of a memorial. So these remind us of something that's happened. Something that marks out a victory, maybe, or defeat, success, something that we need or ought to remember. Often don't remember. So that's that. We can easily say something like, well, I wouldn't forget something, memorial, blah, blah, blah. But if I asked you this, if I said, what was the message we heard 2 months ago? I know you wouldn't be able to remember it at all unless you had some sort of gadget, some memory aid, a little recording, you've written it down, some pictures, some notes, something like that. Then, of course, you'd be able to do it. But that's the whole point. It's important to remember important things, isn't it? So things like birthdays, anniversaries in particular spring to mind. So one here for the men. Don't forget anniversaries. It's not good. It's mess up your history, really. Don't forget that one. But so it was for the Israelites here. God knew that the Israelites would forget. because they always did. They're just like us, always forget what God has done. They just crack on with life. And a couple of generations down the line, they'd be busy doing their thing, whatever it was, family, job, career, surviving a virus, pandemic, whatever it is. That is what they'd be doing. What they wouldn't be doing was remembering how their predecessors had come across this old river. They wouldn't have thought about that at all. They were just getting on with life. Now we are exactly the same. We forget what God has done for us worryingly quickly, I'm afraid, but we do, because we just get consumed with what we're doing. We are part now of an instant throwaway world. Everything is quick. It's here today, gone tomorrow, move on, next thing, now new this, new that, rah, rah, rah. That's the way it is, which is a bit annoying, really. That's our culture, though. So we're not those that spend a lot of time to stop and reflect on anything at all, really, and particularly on what God has been saying to us, potentially. Reflection and staying in touch with our past, however, actually is very, very important. If you know anything about that, we should be doing that more and more. So if we lose touch with our past, we are in danger of losing sight of our identity, of who we are as individuals. And that can lead to all sorts of emotional difficulties. Now, in my other world, I've got several worlds, as an ex-foster carer, adoptive parent, and also now as a foster carer trainer, identity is a critical factor in helping form good, healthy attachments, relationships. And without that, relationships are shallow, easily fractured, and we get a right old mess. And we see that all around us all the time, don't we? People falling apart. Likewise, for us as children of God, we have been adopted into the family of God, which is brilliant, isn't it? Amen. As sons and daughters of our Heavenly Father. Our sense of who we are, our identity, is critical. It's really, really important, because that forms who we are, gives us the confidence that we should have. Now, a key ingredient for us is to remember that all that God has done for us, that's really, really important that we do remember. Not only through the work of Jesus on the cross, which is obviously the most important and wonderfully powerful thing he has done, but God has also been and is at work in all of our lives from the day we are saved right now up until this minute in time. But, big but, unless we make an effort to plot our journey with Jesus, build a history, we can easily forget vital details, and it just goes into the mist of time. I haven't got a good memory, stuff just slips through. So to help us remember all that God has done, we need to be proactive. We've got to get on this one. We need to build our pile of stones that remind us of what God has done for us through our journey with him. So we've got to trawl through our memory and bring it all back to the front. I'm not necessarily saying we need to literally get a pile of pebbles, but we need something or some aid or memorials to point us back to what a great God we have and what he's done for us. It's important. Now, I've got a rubbish memory, as I just said, at the best of times, but when we take time to reflect on all that God has done and is doing, it builds our faith when we can actually get our heads around it. It reminds us what a great big God we have, and he's willing and able to separate seas and rivers for us. I mean, some people write journals, and I think they're very helpful. If you can discipline yourself, you write a journal every day. God did this, he said this to me, I think this, that and the other, and you can then reflect on it. I think that's really helpful, quite a skill, if you can do that. Now, if we do this, it will help us build a history that keeps us going. It will remind us of the goodness of God. It will build faith and make us faithful in return. It will feed our souls and give us stories to enthuse our children and grandchildren. And we need a catalogue, actually. It's a bit like a catalogue going through it. And this is what God did for us now, and this is what God did for us then. So we can tell, not just our kids, but people around us. We need to tell people about the goodness of God. It will excite people about Jesus.